This true story happened a long time ago. At the time, I was living with my parents, working in a factory, and dating a girl named Emily. Everything seemed normal. My aunt, Julia, my mom's sister, visited us often. She was beautiful, young, although she was about 10 years older than me. After the divorce, she spent a lot of time with us. I remember one evening we were all sitting in the kitchen, my parents, Aunt Julia, and I, drinking tea. She was telling us about how her husband had cheated on her, and I could see the sadness in her eyes as she spoke. It made me feel a mixture of sympathy and anger toward her. And I remember thinking, what a fool her husband must have been. I couldn't help but notice how I began to look at her differently. I began to look forward to a visit. If I knew she was coming, I would rush home early to see her. She was warm. She made me feel comfortable, and I was drawn to her more and more. And then my parents went away for 2 weeks to a sanatorium. One day I came home from work and she was cooking dinner. The smell of food filled the house and it seemed so inviting. We sat down at the table, talked, and opened a bottle of wine, just the two of us. We started talking about relationships, and I told her about Emily, how we met, and our first kiss. Julia listened intently, her eyes never straying from mine. And then, somehow it happened. I still don't know exactly how it happened. At some point I caught her gaze, and there was something in it, something electric that neither of us could deny. I leaned over and kissed her, and she kissed me, back to back, first and finally. Well, things escalated from there. In the morning, I was ashamed. I thought it was over. How could I ever look her in the eye again? But Aunt Julia was acting as if nothing had happened. She made breakfast, smiled, and said, "What happened is what happened. No one has to know." And I, silly me, believed her. I wanted to believe her, because I didn't want it to end. The next 2 weeks passed like a blur. We worked during the day and spent the evenings with her. It was like we were in our own little world, cut off from everything else. Emily called, but I often didn't pick up or kept our conversations short. I couldn't focus on anything else. When Julia was around, everything else just faded away. I thought it would end when my parents came back, but it didn't. Julia and I started seeing each other in secret, in the park, at her house, anywhere we could get some privacy. She told me she loved me, that she'd never felt this way before, and I, naive as I was, believed every word. I even started making plans for us to be together. I imagined how we would live together, how we would find a way to make things work, even though it was complicated. Emily started to suspect something and asked me what was wrong. I lied as best I could, twisting my words, but it was obvious that she wasn't convinced. One day, Emily followed me. She saw me meeting Julia. That evening, she called me and told me she knew everything. The worst part was that Emily told her mom. Her mother fainted when she found out. Her father stopped talking to me, and Aunt Julia just disappeared. Her phone was disconnected. She quit her job and moved away. I was left alone like an idiot. No girlfriend, no normal relationship with my parents. Rumors started flying around at work, and soon everyone knew about it. People whispered behind my back, and I felt their judgment every time I walked into the room. I had to quit my job and look for a new one. Now, as time has passed, I can clearly see how stupid I was. I ruined everything I had. Emily has moved on with her life, married and happy. Her parents eventually forgave her, but something broke between us, and it can never be fixed. I never saw my aunt again. The worst part of it all is that I can't even say I didn't realize what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing, but I thought the love was real. I convinced myself that what I was feeling was worth all the pain and devastation it brought. Now I live alone, in a rented apartment, working, trying to get my life together. There are girls, but I can't get into a serious relationship. I can't bring myself to trust, to open up, to allow myself to have such deep feelings again. I heard recently that Aunt Julia married a businessman, and people say she's happy. And me? I'm just here, living my life. I spend my days at work, trying to keep myself busy, trying not to notice the emptiness that has settled in my stomach. I'm just living my life, hoping that someday things will be different. But now I know for sure, there is no love worth betraying others for. If someone says there is, don't believe him. It's all self-deception. I learned this through experience, and the price I paid was the loss of everything that mattered to me. Now all I can do is move forward, even if it feels like I'm dragging the weight of my mistakes behind me wherever I go.